it's finally time. We're here to talk about Bard. That's what the people asked for 250,000 subscribers on the YouTube channel. Shout out to you guys. Thank you for all the subs. Appreciate y'all. Love you guys. I'm gonna start with builds. So builds on Bard. Got one up on the screen here. For me, it's either between Guardian and Fleet. Shout out to the Fleet build from Lathyrus. Let's start with that actually. So we go Fleet. The reason you take this rune is just because you get healing and move speed when you're trading. So when you're, autoing early, it keeps you staying in lane, and laning phase is probably Bard's hardest point in the game. So it just helps a lot, especially when you hit them and you have the 20% move speed to get away. So it's like a bit harder for them to, counter your trade while you're poking. Second rune we take is Triumph, just for the, the takedowns, 12%. Missing health, not bad while you're fighting, especially when you're going all the tank items later on in the game. After that, Tenacity. You take this rune to just, this build is usually when, they got a lot of CC on the enemy team and you want to go double Tenacity runes with, what is it? Resolve after that. And then the last point down here, usually it's always a toss up, honestly. Cut down's not bad, obviously, but you're also going to be building a lot of tank items too and get a bunch of HP. So most of the time I just go coup de grace. And then after that, you're going to go Resolve, and I actually started taking up conditioning as well from trying it out a bit. I know Lathyrus has been raving about this rune, and this is just like once you get past the early stages, if you have sustain from Fleet, you're either going Guardian. On the other build, this just makes it so in the mid game you're that much more tankier if you can get past the early laning phase, which you should be able to. And other than that, you always go unflinching. This rune is probably one of the most broken sub runes in the game. Gives you 10 to 30% tenacity, 10 to 30% slow resist, and on Bard, where you're all about movement, throwing your cooldowns conservatively, trying to hold it for the right moment, and this just makes you slippery as fuck. So other than that, for these, I don't even know what these are called actually. Anyway, these things, I almost always go 10% attack speed. Back in the day when they used to have runes where you would put in attack speed, and for Bard I would always put in 5.7, because there's like a certain threshold where it'll smooth out the attack speed animation, and so I'm always going to take offense here for 10% attack speed. After that, I do it this way because it looks like in some cool little triangle, but whatever. And then the second build for me, Fleet, if you can get away with it, very good if they have a lot of CC. If not, the more defensive rune page would obviously be Guardian. Just be able to be more defensive in lane. If they have a high poke lane, you're playing against Karma, scary all in lane, they can just kill you, stuff like that. And so Guardian just helps negate that, especially if like your AD carry is more on the not as lane dominant side, whatever champion you're playing with, I would say. Oh! This guy fucking got murdered. And then the second rune, we're gonna go with Font of Life, and this just procs off your Q, procs off your autos with your slow on your meeps, and you obviously get a lot of value throughout the game. For the third row, conditioning again for the same reasons I explained in the other build, where it's like, so you should be able to get through laning phase with Guardian, Caretaker Shrines by, you get some chimes in lane, you get mana back, heal yourself up, and conditioning just has insane value if you can get past that. And most of the time, since if you are, experienced Bard player, you should be able to get through laning phase. As stated before, unflinching, very, very good rune. Make sure you take that in the Guardian build, and after that, you always go Domination. So in competitive, I would almost always go Guardian. I did try the Fleet one time. It was okay. But not having Zombie Ward for competitive matches is like such a disadvantage, just because Zombie Ward, literally, like, you're roaming around the map, destroying vision when you can, and getting the extra wards from Zombie Ward just is so much value, having, vision advantage against the enemy team, because there's extra time they gotta hit the ward. You'll see them, way earlier than you normally would. It also gives you, ability power when you kill up to 10 wards. And you get 10 more adaptive force, so it's like 20 AP, and these wards last for 120 seconds, so honestly your vision score just goes crazy with this. So in competitive, almost always take this. After that, I would go Relentless Hunter, just to be faster on the map, because nowadays Mobies is actually way too expensive. It is good to go around the map and stuff like that, but with the items Bard builds now, it's like you're either going Merc Treads, Tabbies, or if you can, Swifties. So having the extra move speed on Relentless Hunter is just that much more valuable moving around the map. Same little sub runes here as before. 10% attack speed, 8 magic resist, 6 armor. Just to be tanky, smooth out the attack animation on Bard, and those are the builds. Bard as a champion, for me, I could play it into every single matchup and honestly do good or great in all of the matchups. The harder matchups to play into is obviously the Kate Lux lanes. That is you hit by one binding is GG. So, and they hump you in lane on the tower. Other than that, it's like obviously Caitlyn Karma is also very, very hard, being, you know, they have perma prio, they just hump you in your tower, poking you the whole time. There's traps everywhere. So those would probably be the 2 hardest lanes, I would say. Everything else is, you know, always depends on, you know, if they mid jungle have timers to dive you. That's about it, and play around jungle. Otherwise, you should be able to farm in most matchups. If I could, I would just, you know, one trick Bard every single game in solo queue. To me, it's just like highest chance of winning, just because the champion is so effective in solo queue, you know, affecting the map. He's probably the fastest supporter on the map, as long as you know you're hitting chimes, getting the 5-sec movement speed like this, which just helps you move around that much faster. Plus you have your portal to help you get you out of sticky situations. So it's just understanding like how to move around the map effectively, and if you can do that well, then Bard is like almost always the best pick to pick. If your team doesn't really have a tank and then nobody can face check really, obviously it'll be a lot harder if the enemy team is more, you know, meta, I would say. So other than that, good combos with Bard for bottom lane. I'm down to play with anything, honestly. You always see, you know, Varus Bard, Ashe Bard multiple times. Caitlyn Bard, obviously really good with the ult synergy. You can literally play, yeah, with Draven is fine. Aphelios is great. Jinx is great. As long as, you know, your AD carry player just has to be able to play by himself when you play these guys as champions. So honestly, I'm cool with any AD carry. Tristana's even fine if you know you have a good matchup to play into, not the, you know, hard humping Kate type of lanes and stuff like that. Counters to Bard, I wouldn't really say there's like counters, it's like combos of lanes. Obviously when you play against all-in champions, I mean every champion has to watch out getting all in. You know, you're playing against Nautilus, bro, watch out for the hook. Level 2 power spike, bro. Of course. Leona, same shit, bro. Blitzcrank, same thing, man. You know, Bard's weakest point in the game is definitely laning phase. Like level 1, yeah, you know, you can poke, get the stacks as best you can, you know, try to push them out, but like once any other champion hits level 2, it's just like the scale of how good Bard is at level 1 all the way until he's 6, right? So you go from 1, you're up here, and then you hit level 2, all the way down, because most supports, they get another combat spell, bro. My 2 other spells, I have a Caretaker Shrine heal and I have a portal. So combat effectiveness in lane goes down tenfold, and that's the weakest part about his lane. Yeah, you can, you know, sustain up with your W, but like this costs 70 mana in lane, and hopefully you get offset by Chime spawning in correct spots for lane. But other than that, level 1 is just you're super strong in level 1 in lane, so try to get as much poke off as you can and stack your spell thieves. After that, good luck. You know, hopefully your team plays around it well, and you want to try to offset them, try to kill you in lane, stuff like that. And then once you do get your roam timers is when Bard is most effective. So at that point, you don't really want to be in lane. When you get to like kill your lane opponent as Bard, that's when you know, like, okay, you probably mastered the champion. If you're able to do that, it should never really happen. If I'm gonna be honest, it should really never happen. Like you solo kill the enemy laner as a duo, unless like you get a ton of poke off early levels, you know. Otherwise you land, you know, it's very easy for the enemy team to, you know, stand in the wave and dodge the Bard Q. To me, it's, you know, very difficult to hit the sun in lane, but when you do, and you know, you're able to catch them off guard, that's like the best you can do for poke. So in most competitive games, you see every support, I mean, if you watch it in most regions, if they need a ward in lane, because the second bush 2 is probably the most important bush to hold. That determines whether or not you can get pushed, when you can poke and stuff like that. So Bard definitely wants, most of the time, get a ward here base and get sweeper if you can. If you need your ward somewhere else for the enemy team late invading, you know, go ahead and put it anywhere, but most of the time you're just gonna base right after you put a ward here and back. I put it in the wrong spot actually. Usually you just put it right here and back off. But yeah, laning phase, when you're playing against the different types of matchups, in the range matchups, I would say it's a little easier to play around their cooldowns because it's not like an all-in. Most of the time it's poke lanes. You're playing against Karma, Vel'Koz, you know, Lux, Lulu. So at that point, you can stack your spell thieves. You don't really got to worry about all-ins too often. Just try to, you know, not take too much poke. Usually range support lanes are easier unless it's a combo, like I said. Galen, Ezreal with Karma, you know, super impressive. So at that point, it's pretty hard. And then other than that, when you're playing against melee, those are the ones you have to watch out for. So Nautilus, Leona, Blitzcrank, Thresh, not really melee, but same thing. Rel, as soon as those guys hit level 2, that's, you know, super power spike. Level 2 to 5 for them is like they're getting insane damage increases on all their abilities. They can one-shot you. And right as you're level 1, you know, try to get some poke off as you can and, you know, match to level 2 with the wave. And then once they hit level 2, that's when, you know, you gotta be very, very careful. You can't really walk up and poke as much anymore. So just watch out for doing that. And the way you're gonna beat these lanes is not through lane, it's by, you know, affecting the map better than they can. All right, also we're going to talk about chime time. So 3 chimes spawn before lane. Obviously they are RNG based on where you walk on the map. So level 1, if you're coming out of base, pretty much you want to stay towards the bottom side of the map, so the chimes spawn on the bottom side of the map. If you're ever going to walk for an invade, your chimes will spawn on that side of the map, and at that point it can be RNG where they are, and usually you're going to waste time going to lane, or if you invade, they'll spawn when you invade and you won't be able to get that chime. It'll probably despawn by the time you're able to even, you know, move to that side of the map. So most of the time you want to stay towards the bottom side of the map so your chimes spawn near your lane, especially if you get good spots. Like, let's say this here is very good just for mana regen in lane while you're, you know, putting your shrines down. You don't really want to leave and randomly go for an off chime just because, like, if it's out of the way and you can die, not great. But if your wave is pushed in and you have time to move, it's great. Obviously if it's next to you, get it when you can. And if there's nothing to do in lane or you're coming out of base is when you get the rest. So for chimes, the breakpoints you actually want to focus on for chimes is pretty much just 5 and 15 are probably the most important. 5 being the slow that you get on the meeps when you start auto attacking. Very, very, very important for Bard later on in the game. I mean, this is scaling mechanics, so the slows are just very, very oppressive, especially in team fights. And then at 15 is when you get the cone, where the meeps hit in a cone. And that's definitely probably one of the biggest power spikes for Bard on his meeps, just because the cone helps you push waves faster, you know, for your AD carry or your mid laner when you're roaming around. And then the slow will be able to hit multiple people, so your damage will also hit those guys with the meeps. And other than that, afterwards, it's like, you know, you gotta get to 35 to get the bigger slow. And that's pretty much it. Other than that, you get extra meeps at certain thresholds, and then it just increases the damage. But I would say 5, 15, and then 35 is like the 3 power spikes you really want to get your chimes at. 15 chimes by, like, you know, 10 minutes is good. And then once you're moving around the map is like pre 20 or a little bit after 20, you want to be able to hit 35, I would say, for the power spikes. So after that, you know, you're just scaling and move around when you can. Make sure you're keeping up the tempo with your team and being in the right spots. Roaming and timers. I think this applies to every support that you play. When you're looking to roam, the only times you can really roam without your AD carry, you know, absolutely raging at you, is pretty much when you push in the wave to the tower. Your AD carry is basing, you can roam. When you are coming out of base, you can roam. And then if your team is fighting in the river, you can peace, you know, and try to go affect that. Other than that, it's like very, very if cases. Let's say, you know that your AD carry is safe in lane and he can 1v2, you can also roam. Other than that, it's like if bottom lane is doomed, and then at that point, you know, get what XP you can and just try to, you know, affect other lanes at that point. Once you get out of laning phase though, you definitely want to be playing with your jungler and like the strongest person that's fed on your team. So at that point is like, just, you know, make sure whoever your AD carry, he's usually going to be mid in like 131 comps. in solo queue. Just, you know, ward for him, make sure he can catch the waves, and then, you know, try to play around your jungler. When Bard roams and you have your roam timer, you know, you're actually doing it. Bard is probably one of the best champions at doing it, just because he has his portal to get out. You know, it can take you far away, where, you know, you're in the middle of a fight, they're going on you, and you can just get out really fast. And then his stun is probably like, honestly, it has high base damage, and if you're able to land a stun in a skirmish, you'll most likely be able to turn it, especially when you're coming through with, you know, your shrine, being able to pop guardian, you have portal to get your teammates out, you have portal to catch up, you know, for lost time. And Bard, especially when you're hitting your chimes on the way for the roam, is like one of the best roamers in the game, being able to affect the map. And most of the time I have a lot of success at, you know, getting wins on this champion, just because in solo queue I think it is definitely more important to affect the map in all lanes as much as you can, especially when you're playing this champion. That's what this champion is for. Objective control. So when you're coming up into objectives, what goes through my mind when I'm playing Bard is like, all right, who is the most fed on their team? Who is the most fed on my team? And it's like, you know, I'm playing around them, and I want to, you know, either peel, stop their fed carry on their team, stuff like that, and be able to be in a good position to either portal out or portal to chase. So you gotta be in a great position to think about that. So when you're doing your build as Bard, you should be, you know, relatively tanky. You're able to, you know, tank some damage, stun them as much as you can, slow them down, play with your backline, and you just very good at disrupting in skirmishes, making, you know, a 3v4, you know, 2v2 into 2v1, whatever, you know, 3v2 into 3v1, etc. So on objective control, Bard can also stall a lot of time. Oh, my camera just died, bro. Now on objectives, Bard can stall a lot of time with his ulti for your team to be able to catch up. So that is very good on like Soul Point. You're contesting third dragon, elder dragon, you can ulti the Nash so your team can catch up. So just, you know, just being able to either engage, peel, stuff like that. If you already have engaged in your team with your ulti, then you can probably save it for like in the middle of the fight if you have better engage than Bard. But most of the time I would say Bard as the main engage, if it's hard for your team to get on to them, is where you're going to probably use it the most. Other than that, your ulti can be used to save teammates in the middle of a fight, to allow your team to either catch up. Your ulti can also be used to save your towers from the Herald. Your ulti can also be used just to disrupt it, you know, make a numbers advantage in the fights. Like I said earlier, you know, 3v3 into a 3v1. It's also good for comboing, obviously, if you're playing with like Caitlyn. You have, you know, Jinx traps down. The only way, I know a lot of people are usually like, Bard ulti used to be like the hardest thing ever, you know, super troll using it. Obviously, when I first started playing Bard, like, I don't know what the hell I was doing, and I was starting some ultis that would just absolutely just screw over my entire team. All you can really do, man, is just throw it out and get practice on it, and you'll figure it out. You know, there's no cheat code to it. You just gotta be able to be in those situations and realize where you could have ulted better, whether that be for engage, to peel, to save your teammate. You know, could be anything. So just keep tossing it, man. Bard's been out for a while. I'm sure everybody knows that he has, you know, 4 spells, passive. Your Q obviously stuns when a champion is behind them. Your W is a shrine. I play the Elderwood skin because with the W, so if you listen to it, right, it'll make a sound as it's fully charged. But what I think most people don't know with the W is that, all right, so when you use it, the max heal, I'm gonna take some damage again. So the max heal is like 56, 55, it always differs, but I think what most people understand is when you can take this and it'll still be 55. So when I play the skin, I look at it, and when the thing is super bright right now, it'll heal you for the maximum. That was like 2 HP off, but like at that point is when you should be able to dig it. So it's like almost half a second or a full second before, you know, it actually procs the bloom. So that's usually when I take my W's, especially in laning phase. Now your E, I think everybody knows all the portals and stuff like that. The only real random portal, it's like this. So you can do this portal on this wall but it can't go backwards. This is the only weird portal that I know in the game, bro. Like, it makes no sense. You can do a little short one here, but like the big one is just way longer. So this is like one of the only portals that's weird that honestly you can never find a usage in game. It's kind of hard to do just because you got to get it right on the lip. Oh, this one actually went way longer. You see how so weird this wall is? So I think this is the only portal in the game where it's super hard to do, you know, replicate in game. I practiced it a lot back in the day in like, you know, 2017, 2018, but there was actually, I've never used that portal in my life. So other than that, I'm sure you guys all know, obviously when you're coming at a base, this is probably one of the most annoying portals in the game off the pad, because when you click to the corner, you used to be able to click here and it will take you automatically to the corner, but now it'll walk you here. So these portals are just so annoying to get off in game. I don't know why it clicks over here when I click here. So ulti, when you're ulting for engage, obviously you want to try to hit a clump of people, or if you're catching people out, and then you also want to try to obviously get your Q off out of your ulti, which you should be able to do it consistently. A lot of the time what you want to be able to do is like have the Q inside of them, like I do here. If you have the Q inside of the first person when they come out of the stasis, it'll tag them, and then at that point is when most people flash, right, to dodge it, but it already tagged them. So when they flash, they were already tagged, and it'll hit the person behind them, and then they're both stunned. So I think a lot of the time, I don't know if people notice it or whatever, but you should be able to hit it out of stasis every single time, even if they flash. The only person that needs to flash is the person behind the first guy you hit. That will make it so it is dodgeable and you won't get stunned. But more often than not, I always see like the first person flash when that's not the person who should flash, you know? Always the second person should flash, and then you're able to dodge the stun. Last thing about the abilities, the only Q that is very hard to replicate in game, I think I've done it once, is where you Q flash like this. Where you're aiming, you aim at the second guy and then you flash next to the first guy. And I've only been able to do this one time. I don't think I have the clip for it, but only one time in the setting where it was actually good. Otherwise it just looks so dumb, you know? So usually when I'm on stage, these are the Qs I'm practicing, you know? So you can Q like this, you can Q like this. Obviously when you're in between two people, you know? So this is it. Or yeah, even at the walls, you know, you aim at the wall and then flash next to the guy, pretty much stuff like that. So just wherever you want it to go. So that's probably the only usage where hard to replicate. All right, that's all right, and then let's talk about builds. So almost always, like 99% of the time, I'm gonna go with Spell Thief start, because just the AP mana regen on it for laning phase is very good. You can obviously go Targons, but this one gives health regen instead of mana regen. Oh, it's not Targons anymore, sorry, I'm a boomer. Relic Shield, anyway, Spell Thieves, but the Relic Shield doesn't have any mana regen, which is, if you're spamming shrines in lane, you're gonna have a hard time regaining mana. So Spell Thieves just that much better. I almost always go Spell Thieves no matter what. You should be able to get a lot of procs off level 1 on your Spell Thieves, and then as you're roaming and affecting skirmishes and stuff like that, you should be able to stack it up. For other than that, all right, yeah, your first item, obviously first base. So when I come, obviously I get rank 1 boots as fast as I can. Ruby Crystal. Now when you go from Ruby Crystal to Kindle Gem, it's like, you know, 50 health, 10 ability haste, not bad for 400 gold. Or you can honestly either get 25 MR, 15 armor. So I usually buy one of these, depending on, you know, who I'm fighting against early game and their damage type. So if it's like a control mage middle, I'm not really going to interact with that guy too often. I'm only coming, you know, if it's a free kill, so I won't see him too much. But if it's a jungler where it's like AD jungler, AD carry, and then, you know, obviously support, so you usually have magic damage, just like, yeah, I'll just get the cloth armor and then get my rank 2 boots depending on what type of team they have. You know, you can just buy it outright, get the cloth armor again. And then after that is when you want to go towards Haste. Honestly, I would always Most of the time I go Kindle Gem because it's the cheaper option, but if you do have the gold, I would go straight into Aegis of the Legion just for the resistances. Probably more, for me it's more efficient, but most of the time I can only get Kindle Gem based on the gold I have. And then, you know, go with this, obviously get pink cords when you can. But first item you're going to finish with is Locket, no matter what. It's probably the best item on Bard just because of the Consecrate mythic passive where 2 armor and magic resist to your teammates. Oh, 5, sorry, 5 armor and magic resist to your teammates, and then, you know, grants all other legendary items an extra 2 to the Consecrate buff, which is very, very good. And then after that, the best part about Bard, I would say, is you can pretty much build any item. Back in the day, I would almost always go Banshee's Veil because I loved having the shield and I could just walk up, you know, when Banshee's Veil used to have HP, but it no longer does and they removed it. So I can't go that anymore. Now, the best items in the game right now, which are just super cheap, so easy to buy: Anathema, Force of Nature, and if you need an armor item instead, Frozen Heart is so cheap. Obviously it doesn't give HP, but man, is it good, bro. So most of the time what you want to have is either a Frozen Heart or Force of Nature, and then Anathema. And as soon as you get the one item that counters their team, it always depends, you know, what kind of team comp they're building. You get this and Anathema, and it's pretty much just like you're unkillable. You put it on, you know, the hardest hitting guy to reduce 30% damage with Anathema. It gives 20 ability haste, a ton of HP. You have your resistances. You're getting, you know, your mythic passive Consecrate for the homies, and Frozen Heart, you know, reducing the attack speed by 20%, reduces incoming damage from attacks. And as you level up, like, you are the tankiest motherfucker in the world, bro. And this is probably, for me, the best way to play Bard right now. You don't really need to build AP and stuff like that because you're scaling off of your Chime damage, and you have high base damage Q, which is 260, and you're pretty much just utility. You're looking to engage, affect skirmishes as much as you can, tank as much damage for your teammates as you can, and just being a nuisance for the enemy team. Like, they have to respect you no matter what. 3 things to win on Bard: land your Qs, affect the map, and last but not least, be there for the boys.